go New York, New York.
Welcome, everyone, and thank you for joining us for MEMCA's Hellenic Energy Independence Forum Part 2 panel discussion. This event is in association with AHEPA's Hellenic Cultural Commission, AHEPA Empire District 6, and the Hellenic American National Council. My name is Lou Katsos, MEMCA's president, founder, chairman of AHEPA's Hellenic Cultural Commission, and governor of AHEPA's Empire State District 6. Today's unique event will be moderated by Constantine Drougos, the managing director of Argo Marketing and MEMCA's VP. The distinguished panel includes Constantinos Papalucas, energy policy expert, coordinator of the National Hydrogen Committee, Dr. Manolis Panagiotakis, former CEO of PPC, Dr. Yiannis Bassias, former president and CEO of Hellenic Hydrocarbon Resources Management, Alysia Helming, chairman of EarthFund Global, Konstantine Messinis, president of METE, Metalourgiki Kozanis, and Vasilis Rallis, a co-founder of Earth Index and Parity Platform. In the 200th year of Hellenic independence, the high energy dependence of the Hellenic Republic has been an Achilles heel to its economy. It has acted as a hindrance to its growth, contributed to a weakening of its geo-strategic position, and created a reliance on third countries, some not friendly, for its energy sources. Although the Hellenic Republic is a small energy consumer, its geographical position favors it in becoming a vital corridor for transporting gas and electricity from east to the west. Hellas is trending towards becoming one of EU's hubs in US LNG exports at a time when sustainable development is a fundamental prerequisite for economic growth. In addition, green lignite by using carbon capture technologies and hydrocarbon exploration are important elements of the energy mix of the Hellenic economy. Application of new and developing technologies on these could drastically change the Hellenic energy security and supply program and contribute to a smooth transition to new low carbon footprint energy sources. As we know, a reduction of gas emissions is essential and related to a reduction of carbon generation, which requires careful financial and technical management of the lignite and oil transition period to geothermal, solar, wind, hydrogen, and other energy sources. The Hellenic Republic has been a net exporter of petroleum products thanks to its strong refining capability, despite its low crude oil production. Onshore and offshore drilling over the next few years will allow it to access the percentage of import replacement by domestic production. Recent hydrocarbon discoveries could also signal significant commercial developments for the country. In this case, investment by large international companies will be important towards the development of the industry and Hellenic economy and to provide increased added value. Regarding gas, interest in exploration has been revived, especially following the discoveries of the Southeast Mediterranean, and which also has had an irredentist and security geopolitics associated with it. The opportunity to revitalize the Hellenic energy industry and overcome the current challenges in the coming years is what our distinguished panel will explore in this second in a series event on Hellenic energy. And due to the overwhelming response, to continue the dialogue from our last event. We hope this continuing conversation and others contributes to a wave of innovation in this regard. It is my pleasure to introduce today's panel discussion moderator, Constantine Drougos. Constantine has many years experience in developing high energy innovative projects in the US and worldwide, and is currently the managing director of Argo Marketing International Consultants that advises a variety of organizations. He is also the CEO of the Oasis Carbon Management Group based in the US and the Hellenic Republic, and works with power companies and governments in devising low carbon footprint, sustainable green solutions. He's also EMBCA's VP and on its board. Welcome, Konstantine, and please start this great panel discussion.
Thank you, Lou, and welcome everybody. Actually, when we discussed the date of this panel with Lou, it was interesting, since we're talking about Hellenic Energy Independence, to have it 3 days after the 200-year anniversary. And it was some of the most beautiful pictures of Greek flags covering some of the most important buildings around the world, from the Taj Mahal to Sydney Opera to the Rome Colosseum, and of course the White House in Washington, D.C. So we had 200 years of continuous struggles, growth, and development. And in the last, I think, 60 or 70 years, PPC, or the E as we know it in Greece, was a pillar of the economy. And it was built actually with US financial aid, with the Marshall Plan. And it's now still the largest Greek corporation, a large employer, and it was a single electricity producer till a few years ago. PPC, they owns the lignite production units and also owns some natural gas plants and has some renewables. It was actually one of the first utilities in Europe that installed renewables in the 70s in the small island of Kythnos. And since we talked and mentioned lignite, and this is one of the things I'm going to talk later on, it's a low quality coal that abounds in Greece. It's almost over 1 billion tons in reserves. And it was a key driver for growth for was pretty much the majority of the material used. At one point, it amounted up to 65% of the Greek energy needs that was produced from lignite in Greece. This has been reduced to about 2 or 3% right now, and the plan is to bring it to zero, as we call it delignitization in Greek, by 2028. And so what do we do now? And this is something that the panel, we're going to discuss and cover different angles. And we talked about energy security. What is energy security? And a simple definition is an uninterrupted supply of power at affordable prices, and one that does not endanger the government budget stability, i.e., it's not subsidized. So energy planning is at the core of every nation's development today, from simple hard-working citizens to industries that keeps them employed. So I'm very happy to have with us today Mr. Panagiotakis, which I'd like to introduce. He was the chairman of and CEO of PPC, Public Power Corporation, or the from 2015 to 2019. And he's been working in PPC since 1974, holding a variety of senior managerial positions in the fields of human resources, organization, training, health and safety, planning and performance department, and the distribution network. He is a graduate of the Mechanical Electrical Engineering Department of the National Technical University of Athens and holds a diploma in management from Henley Management College. Mr. Panagiotakis, welcome and thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Actually, I will introduce each one as we go along, and I would like to, since you have such an experience with the being at the core of all this conversation, because also the or PPC will be one of the main drivers of the new era of power in Greece. So I would I'm very interested to hear your experiences and what you think was going to happen?
First of all, I thank you very much for the invitation and I congratulate you for the organization of this important meeting. I strongly agree that the energy dependency of Greece is a crucial issue and it must be addressed effectively, not only for economic but for national reasons. Let me start with two introductory remarks. First, the extent of energy dependency. Today, Greece's energy dependency rate is 78%. Greece is one of the most energy dependent European countries. According to the National Plan for the Energy and Climate, this rate is expected to be reduced to 73% by 2030. Despite the large-scale transformation of the energy production and consumption and the corresponding large scale of capital investments, the energy dependency will remain too high. Bearing in mind that Greece is to the southeast borders of Europe, having weak coupling with strong European energy transmission networks, the main reason for that is the insufficient infrastructure in transmission networks of Greece's north neighboring countries. This situation is not expected to change substantially in the near future. Second, I want to clear on that. I strongly support the European and national efforts to address the climate change topic in the framework of the Paris Agreement, particularly as far as the reduction of gas emissions is concerned. Moreover, achieving the Paris Agreement targets will have a positive impact on the problem of energy dependency, given that Greece is very rich in renewables, as well as there is large room in energy saving and in the electrification of such operations as thermal and cooling of buildings, transportation, etc. Having said that, I want to focus on the electric power production mix and in particular towards the target year 2030. According to the National Energy and Climate Plan, after having fulfilled the targets for energy saving, energy efficiency and electrification, and the electric interconnections of the islands, the demand for electrical energy will be higher by 5% compared with the current one. The target for renewables production is to contribute about 61.5% to the total production. However, considering the fact that both the photovoltaic and wind energy production are random, serious challenges are emerging concerning the power system security as well as the security of supply. Consequently, a substantial amount of base load production is absolutely necessary. According to the National Energy and Climate Plan, the expected storage capacity of the system in 2030 will be 2.5 gigawatts. That is about 25% of the head of the maximum demand. This forecast is realistic, given the cost of battery storage and hydrogen production, as well as the restricted possible capacity of pumping in Greece. As a result, a substantial amount of thermal power production, which is the main base load generation, will be absolutely necessary. Two sources are available for thermal production: imported natural gas and home lignite. We must find the optimal mix. Given the gas is imported to Greece by ducts through Turkey or by the sea as LNG, it is obvious that serious problems of energy security will emerge, in particular in the case of total thermal production from gas. These problems will be very crucial, particularly during crisis periods. On the other hand, the energy production system and our economy will be exposed to out-of-control factors such as the volatility of the international prices of gas and the difficulties for gas supply, which would likely occur for many reasons. Additionally, we must take into account the problem of trade balance burden. And finally, we must bear in mind that natural gas is a mineral resource too, and according to European Green Protocol, its use for power generation must stop by 2050, like the coal and lignite. To avoid these consequences, we must keep lignite energy production to some extent. To this end, there are two fundamental prerequisites. First, keeping always the emissions in line with the European targets for the climate change. And second, turning the lignite production competitive compared with natural gas. The most modern lignite stations belonging to PPC are METE in Florina, a station of capacity 300 megawatts and with coefficient 35 to 36%, and Ptolemais 5, which is under construction and is expected to start operating next year, 660 megawatts and coefficient 41.5%. This is the most modern lignite unit in Europe. Taking structural measures and applying effective management to achieve the best practices in mines operation, as well as following the hedging for getting CO2 allowances, the production from the above stations will be competitive. These stations will operate fully, producing according to their availability. Additionally, the lignite unit of Agios Dimitrios 5, which is 340 megawatts and coefficient 32%, can be competitive in comparison to the older gas units in restricted operation, about 30% of its availability. As a result, the above stations will produce by 2030 under market rules, and I undermine that, but under market rules, about 12.5% of the total production. Bear in mind that at the beginning of 2000, the lignite production was more than 60%. And the total emissions will meet the recent European requirements, which defined in December 2020. The concept is that lignite production will be reduced gradually, being substituted by green production in connection with the technical and economic progress of energy storage. Keeping this lignite production, there will be many advantages for the energy production system and for the Greek economy too, including, first, further reduction of the energy dependence, 67% instead of 73%, which is the target of national plan. 340 million euros saving of trade balance yearly due to the cuts to the gas imports reduction. This is according to the forecast of the national plan for the gas prices. 100 million lower energy costs every year according to the forecast of the national plan. The problem of security of energy supply will be reduced substantially, being manageable. The transition to the post-lignite era will become smooth, avoiding further devastation of West Macedonia, one of the poorest areas of Greece, where more than 50% of the local economy is dependent on lignite. If the transition to the post-lignite era is violent, West Macedonia will be under the threat of the rapid rise of unemployment and emigration, particularly of youth. More than 3,000 direct job positions will be kept and multiple indirect ones. More than 160 million will be spent yearly in the area from lignite due to the lignite production. The importance of lignite for Greece is obvious. As a consequence, research concerning the methods of CO2 capture is crucial. Greece must participate and contribute to this research. PPC must examine to participate in pilot projects. If the outcome is positive and feasible investments are needed, the problem of power production in Greece will be solved for many years. I estimate that if the total cost of CO2 capture for Ptolemais 5 and METE is about 50 euros per megawatt hour, the units will be competitive compared with the gas stations, even the most modern ones. Total cost includes both operating and amortization. Bear in mind that Ptolemais 5 is expected to produce yearly more than 4.2 terawatt hours and METE merely 2 terawatt hours. The duty for both improving the competitiveness of lignite production and contributing to research on CO2 capture belongs to PPC. To this end, PPC must operate and develop its business activities aiming mainly at the public will, not aiming only at easy profits. Of course, this strategy depends on the will of the main shareholder, which is the state. The responsibility for this belongs to the government. Thank you very much for hearing me.
Thank you, Manoli. I appreciate it. And I take from what you say that lignite could have a role as a bridge to the next level of power production in Greece, and that existing lignite plants can produce up to 12.5% under market rules. That's a very important
under market rule.
EU natural and natural gas, also being a hydrocarbon, has also its own predicaments and should stop down or wind down by 2050. And if CO2 cost is 50 euros, and a lot of people say actually we're gonna go higher than that. I've heard numbers from 80 to 180, but the existing plants with 50 euros can be competitive. So thank you very much. And we want to go next to Yiannis Bassias. Kalispera Yiannis, as we say in Greek. Yiannis is actually interesting. He moved from Athens to Serbia, his hometown, or Velvendo is actually his hometown at one time. And he's the advisor to the municipality of Serbia Kozanis in Western Macedonia for sustainable development of energy and mineral resources within the framework of the Greek Transition Plan for Development, SDAM. He served from 2016 to 2020 as president and CEO of the Greek state-owned company Hellenic Hydrocarbon Resources Management, managing the Greek EMP exploration and production concessions, the implementation of the European Offshore Safety Directive in Greece, and the active international promotion of oil and gas potential of more than 140,000 square meters offshore. He has 33,000 years, I was going to say. He has 33 years of international business experience in geology and geophysics, in technical projects and corporate management for reservoir evaluation, creating portfolios of oil and gas resources, and managing the contribution of human resources and international relations. He served for 20 years as president and CEO of the French group Zeorex, establishing service subsidiaries in France, the United Kingdom, Tunisia, and the Republic of Congo. Before joining the industry, he pursued an academic career in Berlin and Paris, and he has published more than 30 papers in international scientific and industrial journals, and is co-author of 3 reports on marine missions in the Indian Ocean. Thank you, Yanni. Welcome.
Thank you, Konstantin. Hello to everybody. First of all, there are 2 remarks. The first remark is that 33,000 years ago, it was a glacial period. So there was a real climate change, not like this one, which is meteorology changes only. So this is the first remark. And the second remark is that I did not move there. I'm between Athens and Paris, where I live, and I decided to help contribute in a certain way on what is going on in this area. I mean, Western Macedonia, where it is very important, as you said, delignitization storm, because there is a lot of work to be done. And so it is good to help also people, I mean, on the field, not only behind an office writing articles or whatever it is. So as you know, I came back, I come from the oil and gas industry, where I spent more than 35 years now. And I would like to bring some remarks on the experience I had these few months, 3 or 4 months in Macedonia, and also link that with the energy resources, mainly oil and gas, lignite, etc., etc. But I will have a say on the solar panels and the windmills, as we say, and the problem they create there, because there was no preparation of the population and what is going on to be done. It means that when we're in a hurry, and this is a very common expression that we have, we very often have problems because we have to organize everything very good. I'll tell you about that. So first of all, I would like to draw your attention to the concept of energy poverty in Greece. But energy poverty, it is not something very bad. I mean, you have that everywhere. You have that in Europe, you have that in the US, and I think Alysia can tell us she knows also difficulties in some cases and localities in California. You have that everywhere. What is the term? Energy poor is considered a household which spends more than 10% of its income to meet the energy needs. It is very simple. This is the term that everybody applies. And you have that in legislation in Europe and also in other countries, and United Nations too. So think about the lignite, and when we want to do things very fast, because we have to pass to the alternative energies, they pollute less and more, much more less. But I think what happened in January and February, when everybody was looking, where is the lignite to burn it? Because we have to heat a lot. And I don't know if you remember that in 4 days, I think the hydropower, total hydropower of 1 month was consumed in 4 days also, because the needs were there for people to bring electricity and warm. So it is not so easy, and we will have that kind of problems later on, because the renewables, they don't have this thermal response that we may have with the fossil fuels. And so they will cover not 50%, that they will stay at about 30% maybe, until the time that other new technologies, they will come and they will offer more results in thermal response. I'm talking not about kilowatt, I'm talking about joule. I mean, it is a conversion, but it is good to remember what is joule, although everybody is talking about the kilowatts, megawatts, and gigawatts now. So for Greece, what is important and dangerous is that at this time we import 5 BCM, it means 1 billion cubic meters of natural gas by pipe or LNG vessels, because as far as we reduce the lignite, which is good, but not very fast, as I said, we need to continue have the electricity that the renewables today they cannot substitute. And as the country, hopefully it goes faster than the development of the renewables and the investments of the renewables, we will face situations probably where the imports of gas will increase, and there are serious, very serious organizations. They say that maybe in a few years we will go up to from 65% of dependence on imports we have for oil and gas, we will go up to 70, 80, or maybe 95%. I hope this is not, this will not be the case, but there are a lot of indicators they show us that. So what we should do if we want to avoid that, and the panel today is this one. It is the energy independence for this country. So we have to face the problems, and we have to face the probable solutions we may have. So progressively, we will keep the equilibrium, and we will not have difficulties like those that will become economic, social, for a large population that lives in not only in Macedonia, because we have in Arcady, also in Peloponnesus, the same problem with in a smaller scale with megalopolis, where the other installations, facilities, where we burn lignite in order to produce electricity and energy in general. So what we should do, I think, and I say that because I consider that it is good to say what you believe, that we have to keep part of the lignite that has to be considered as a national wealth. And also we should proceed with all of these new technologies, even they are far and not for tomorrow, not for after tomorrow, like hydrogen. But at the same time, we don't have to forget that it is important to explore for the hydrocarbons, because probably we have large reservoirs. At this time, we have estimations of resources that, because we are based on geology, geophysics, but if we don't do that west, north, west, southwest, and south of Crete, we will never have the answer. And the problem here is that, look, it is very simple, not mathematics, arithmetics. We say, Europe says, and now US also, that in 2050, finished, no more coal, no more fossil fuels. 2050, it is something like how many? 20, 29, 28 years from now? Let's say 28 from now. In my experience and in my business, if you want, oil and gas, when you build a platform, you will not do that if you don't see in front of you 25 years, so you have sufficient time to amortize, to break even, to make some money. If you add that, and I remind you that we did not yet drill, so we don't have any discovery, we will be very close to 2050. That creates a lot of problems for this financial director, officer of big company, who will say, hey guys, what are we doing here? We will not build something that will never pay us, because everybody's saying that in 2050, so we create other problems, and it's a pity. It's a pity because in such a way we consider that our I would say possible fossil fuels like gas are stranded. At the same time, we strand more or less the lignite, and then we have some other problems that are created that we cannot imagine if we will not visit, go, walk, talk, live with whom? With the farmers, with those who have the sheep, the cows, and they produce milk. And in places like some parts of Western Macedonia, where this is very important, these people, they will face a lot of difficulties for very simple reasons. When you have this mania, I would say, or fashion of installing everywhere solar panels. Not yet installing everywhere solar panels, but at this time, even people they did not know what was that 5 years ago. They go to submit when they gather 3, 4, 5, and they have the backup of a bank. what they do is they go and submit to the agency, the Greek agency, RA. They submit a proposal, and imagine that in the place where I work now in order to advise technically the municipality, there are in total 28 licenses awarded, and there are 24 on examination. For a lot of those, I would say more than 50%, the installation will be in places where at this time you have the animals, they stay, they go out, they eat before they go to sleep, and before they will give milk or whatever you want. So in simple words, you know, there is a financial help for a farmer when he uses a certain land to feed the cattle, and at the same time, so if you reduce that, this financial help from the country will be reduced. At the same time, you will have to buy food and probably to import food because there will be less accessible on the land, the remaining land. So all of these problems are very simple. You can say that, well, it is so simple, there is no need to think about that. We are going to industrialize, etc. But think about what kind of reactions we may have for people, they live there. And we are talking about the region, Western Macedonia. It is not only the huge places of Ptolemais, where it was surface lignite excavation, or Florina. It is much more important, not only those. So these are things that everybody has to think about, and especially those who take care of that. And here I would like to say something else. You know, the man or the structure who is planning, it is not the structure or organization or whatever that will implement. So when you plan, you do your job like an architect, but then it is not the architect who will build the building. And I want to say that we have very good planning, I think, although there are critics about that, the famous SDAM. But then the implementation, it is another problem because there was no preparation, and there are 3 ministries that are involved in that, and the region also. So there is a lot of effort to be done because the delignitization just started. It is not the end, it is not the middle, it is just the beginning. And there is sufficient time to take care of all of these issues. And for these places, one part, another part of my experience in these few months is that that I borrow from the oil and gas industry. As I told you about platforms and the 25 years, etc. Well, the decommissioning, it is not only the life of the oil and gas platforms. You decommission, you take out everything, and you clean, you recycle everything. We have to think that the solar panels and also the windmills, we will need at a certain time, we say it is 20 years life, and we don't have the experience because 20 years ago, it was just the very, very beginning and we had nothing in place. So, and in other countries too. So what will happen after 20 years? We don't know yet, but it is, I think it is interesting, drawing from the experience we have in decommissioning from other sectors, such hydrocarbons, that independent accounts should be fed, closed accounts, every year, so that the restoration of the park is guaranteed after 20 years. And if there are some unforeseen situations before, well, there will be a guarantee that all the environmental issues can be faced. And when I say environmental issues, means money, means cost. Then what else? If the decommissioning arrives at the very end and all this money was not spent, that was put every year, well, the company or the consortium will take back this money and will bring that in their accounts. So yeah, this is what I wanted to tell you from the experience in this area. Simply because the delignitization, it is not only lignite, it is a lot of things, and I think I gave you an aperture of some other issues, characteristics that are related with the delignitization, and well, that is the end of my presentation, and I thank you very much.
Thank you, Yiannis. So taking a few of the things you said, explore hydrocarbons capacity, because we haven't actually know yet what's in there. We only have some guidance. Energy poverty, whoever spends 10% of their income to cover their power needs, that's considered energy poor, and should keep part of the lignite production to be considered as lignite to be considered as natural wealth, because as we're going to talk later, lignite is not just for power generation. And that in Serbia alone, 24 licenses for renewables were awarded, and 28 are under examination. And Serbia is a very small community, area, considering the rest. And keep the local people producing, which is very important. Give us something to the local people to work, to stay there. Also, decommissioning is an expensive and complicated process. It's not something you can just close down the door and leave. And what you said is what will happen in the next 20 years, and that's where I want to go and continue with Alysia and Vassilis, because Alysia is in San Francisco, and apparently Silicon Valley should know what will happen in the next 20 years, right? And
yes.
Alysia, thank you for being with us. Alysia is Alysia Helming is a true pioneer of wind, solar, and biofuels in the US. She co-founded and was a chief financial officer and projects worth over $6 billion. And Pristine Sun, one of the companies she's the head of right now, was the largest developer of small utility-scale solar in California. Also, Trade Wind Energy, which was sold in 2019, made the Enel Green Power the largest wind and solar company in the world. She's a featured keynote speaker in sustainability, renewable and energy, and women empowerment. And she's also an international best-selling author of the Proto-Genesis series. Obviously, she picked that word because she loves Greece. And that was set in Greece. It's set in Greece, actually. And is executive producer of Soul films made in collaboration with the Greek Ministry of Tourism and Discover Greece. She's a former Big Six C-level consultant to Fortune 50 companies and Wells Fargo, Bank Finance, UCLC, UCLA, etc. And she's also the chairman of Earth Index, which is gonna see some slides. With her is also Vassilis Rallis. Vassilis is an energy and business development expert focusing on renewables and fintech. He is the co-founder of Earth Index and of Parity Platform. And in the past, he has worked in the Greek and foreign multinational companies in Greece and the UK. Previously, he worked at Greek regulatory authority known as RAE, managing various large-scale projects. He holds an MBA from the Alliance Manchester Business School, an economics degree from the Athens University of Economics and Business, former ASOE, and has a global energy certificate from the Harvard Business School. He speaks Greek, French, Russian, and Italian. So welcome, Alysia and Vassilis. Thank you for being with us tonight. So 20 years from now, let's start with the juice here.
Oh, 20 years from now, you want to know what's going to happen? Okay, let's get my crystal ball out for you. So just to start with, I have some news, okay? So you had mentioned also that I was the chairman of EarthFund Global, which was a nonprofit, right? And so our model between Earth Index and EarthFund Global also has a nonprofit and a for-profit aspect to it. The nonprofit side, EarthFund Global, is it's merging into Green Cross International as of next month. And what this means is that Green Cross Greece is starting next month. And Green Cross Greece is part of the Athena Center for Research and Innovation. So it's under the auspices of the Ministry of Development, et cetera. So under Dr. Phoebe Kondori and all of her efforts across multiple nonprofits. So we're leveraging on the nonprofit side some of the best minds in Greece, which is really exciting around on the research side, with our for-profit company, which we're going to talk about today, which is Earth Index. And Earth Index is interesting because Basilis and I really started the company last year. I guess it was a year and a half ago now. And from there, we met some interesting people from the oil and gas industry. And so Earth Index LLC was an oil and gas platform that utilized machine learning and data aggregation. And that platform was later sold into a large oil and gas company that is now helping that industry in the way that we're trying to help renewables now in Greece. So we became Earth Index officially because we merged with their name and brought some of those team members over. So we have that heritage, but we're focused on renewable energy and clean energy, and we'll talk more about what that means. But the reason I brought up the nonprofit side of things is that Green Cross Greece and our effort, Earth Index, and some other efforts that we have are now almost like a pilot country for 26 countries across Green Cross International. So Greece is a birthplace of ancient innovation. So why not for smart energy too? So that's why I'm here. So Basilis?
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for the invitation to participate in this panel. And I would like to thank you for hearing us out on what we're trying to do. The idea here is that we feel that the way that renewables are being, let's say, developed and processed and licensed, not just in Greece, but just about everywhere, there's an inherent problem in the way that the whole process is managed. And one of the things that we are aspiring to do and feel that we are quite capable of actually doing is slashing the time frame between submitting an application and getting the project electrified, therefore getting into the market. And the first, let's say, pilot test market that we're looking at is in Greece. Why? Because we feel that the Greek market for renewables is actually now one of the hottest markets in Europe, if not in the world. And we feel that it's ready to get disrupted one way or the other. So how do you disrupt a market such as, let's say, rig it as the Greek one? The first one is with technology. And that's where we have a lot of things that we have up our sleeve. And we think that, going forward, we will be able to deploy them. And basically, we're talking about machine learning, big data analysis, and artificial intelligence. And those are the tools that we will be using to make it more convenient for developers to get into the market. And the other one is obviously about costs, because once we set up shop, so to speak, and we are ready to be able to provide the services that we're looking at to four main target audiences, which basically are developers, service providers like consulting, technical, lawyers, and all of that, capital providers, which basically financing, and last but not least, the government as an aggregate view of what's going on. Then we will be able to have a very good understanding of what's going on, and therefore move forward the whole process of getting the right project at the right time, at the right price, and on the right plot of land. That's basically the vision that we have. And I think that we have a very good team, both here in Greece and mainly in the US, because we have a lot of input from where Alysia is standing in Silicon Valley. And we think that we are now in the process of, getting all the right pieces into how we want to put them, how we want to set them up, and to move within the next couple of years aggressively in getting the operations up and running. That's the nutshell.
So we do have some slides that we want to show you. I'm not sure who there is. Okay, there we go. Excellent. Okay, there it is. So one thing that I heard earlier, I believe it was from Dr. From PPC. I believe that grid intelligence is very, very important from what I'm hearing from you, from what you were talking about there. And grid intelligence is essential to what we're doing. We need to understand what's happening with the overall power grid in Greece. And I heard that from you, right? Please correct me on how to say your name, Dr. Panagiotakis. How do I say your name? I'm sorry. I'm still learning the Greek names.
Panagiotakis.
Okay, Panagiotakis. I'm learning Greek right now, actually. I'm taking lessons. So thank you very much for your patience with me. So location and grid intelligence is very important. Next slide, please. Okay, so we described about Earth Index, but so my background is, and some of you already know this, but my husband and I started the first wind farm company in Kansas 20 years ago. And that company now, as we said, Tradewind Energy, grew up to be the largest in the United States at one point. And then now, as part of Enel Green Power, it is a very large developer throughout the world in wind and solar energy. We also built a biofuels plant up to 10 million gallons per year and sold that. And then we were on the forefront of the small utility scale farm financing and development in California and then throughout the United States. So that's our background originally. We now both, my husband and I, have separate entities. This one is my startup originally, but then I joined forces with Vasilis Rallis, and it became something where I have a love for Greece that I have developed through writing my book and coming to Greece over 32 times in 3.5 years. And through that, I learned very much about just an observation about the energy industry. And I realized that there was a real opportunity for Greece because of the way the land is, and also because of the security side of things. And I saw that there was a really urgent need there. And for me, I'm mission driven. So it's all about trying to help in that way. So we started this effort in Greece with Vasilis and I, and then we met some of the ladies from Earth Index LLC, and this effort moved to Maine. So we also have it going as a pilot now in Maine as a whole state effort and a whole country effort in Greece. Those are the two pilots that we have. What we're focused on is we're looking at bringing all the data together, over 100 layers of data, into maps. So it's maps. So it's a map of your whole country. And it says, here's Greece. Here's what the power grid looks like right now. And we're not just talking about transmission, we're talking about distribution. And especially for us in the United States, and I'm now hearing in Greece, this is also an issue, there's a lack of understanding of down to the distribution level power sources as far as the grid. And the issue there is something called dynamic hosting capacity that needs to be calculated. And what that allows is for the understanding of where there are shortages in energy, right, throughout the grid, and making the grid smarter, because renewable energy is intermittent, right? So it's up when the wind is blowing, there's energy, right? When there's not, there's not. And so with intermittent resources versus a coal plant like lignite, for instance, which is stable energy source, right? There has to be some modifications and upgrades to the grid to make it smarter. And we have to understand, where do we put battery storage in, for instance? How do we support it? And where can we, for instance, where can we expand the grid? Like the interconnection of the islands is something very much essential. And I'm really glad to see that. Longer term for me, I love the interconnection, the activity that's going on between Greece, Cyprus, and Israel. I saw the announcement of that project, and that is really, really critical. There's another company working on something similar, but that will loop into what we're doing essentially in Israel as well. So we're excited about helping the whole market to visualize where to put renewable energy projects that are new. Where are the new opportunities? So let's say Greece right now it gets 25% of its, what is the number now, Bassias, Rallis? What's the number? What are we at with renewable energy in Greece currently?
Well, depending on what you see it, we have something like about 10 giga installed capacity, somewhere over there. And let's just say that we are approaching the targets that the government has signed for the European Commission's and European Union objectives.
Okay. And so those targets, right, we need to reach, let's say we wanted to go, in utopia to 100%, which we already know we can't do with the current power grid and such, okay? But let's say we want to go, 10% higher, okay? Whatever that number is, we want to know where is it within Greece, offshore or hydro or all kinds of renewables, right? Where are the best locations that are untapped, that have not yet been explored and have not yet been developed? And then we want to know what the profitability of those sites are and what are the risk profiles of that site. So once we identify the site, what is it going to take for that site to become something, right? And then in other cases, we have to look at the cultural and the economic implications of that site. For instance, if I'm sitting on the beach in Mykonos, I don't want to be staring out at an offshore turbine right there, right? That's not going to happen. That's not the best use of where to put a turbine, for instance, a wind turbine. So software and the artificial intelligence and machine learning is thinking ahead and predicting all of those things, about 100 layers, for instance. So if you could move on to the next slide, and I'll let Bassias talk about this one. Yes. Bassias?
I'm sorry, I missed you. What did you say? You want me to talk about?
I said this slide, you're covering this one, the opportunity in Greece.
So,
yes.
What is, as I said before, I think that there is an endemic, let's say, problem on how licensing is done in most renewables. And the problem is that we don't have a very nice, put it mildly, understanding of what renewables we want and where we want them. So one of the things that we're looking at is that because of that, we have a high failure of not completing projects which are to be electrified, and we also have problems in choosing the correct sites. So what we're offering through our platform is something which is unique, and we feel it's a sort of a 360 view, a holistic view of the country, and where would one be able to pinpoint exactly which plot of land is the appropriate one for selecting for our renewable project development. Either it's going to be a solar park or a wind farm, or even a biogas or biomass or something else. So we feel that in this way we are, let's say, solving one of the main problems, which is basically finding the suitable plot of land. And then what we feel is that, based on what just Alysia mentioned, is that because there's an increasing challenge in operators and utilities of absorbing the production capacity of those renewable installed megawatts and gigawatts coming up online. Okay, we feel that we will be in a position actually to understand how the market dynamics will play out, and therefore be able to provide with some really value-add information to the stakeholders and the players of the market of where, when, and how to get their renewable and development projects up online. And we feel that this is the way that we will be able to solve most of, let's say, the problems of high failure rate that renewables have right now, just not in Greece, but overall in Europe, and therefore be able to play a key role in how the next market structure will become in the years to come.
Great. Next slide, please. Okay, so what we are Earth Index, a SaaS-based solution. And our secret sauce is that we provide dynamic hosting capacity calculations. So what we do is we take some data from the utility, what they have available about the distribution grid. We utilize advanced satellite imagery. We triangulate all kinds of data. And with that data, there are some algorithms then that calculate what the capacity issues are on the grid down to the distribution level. And this is important because a big part of trying to commission a renewable energy project or develop one from the beginning is understanding the costs of what it takes to interconnect to the grid and what are the capacity issues. In some cases, if there's no availability on the grid nearby, then it wouldn't even make sense to build a new wind farm or solar farm, right, in that case. So then there needs to be a way to upgrade the grid or to add a substation, for instance. So all of those upgrades are very expensive. And in some cases, you'll think, wow, this is the perfect site, right? It would be great. But now it's not going to work because the costs are prohibitive. It's too expensive. And no one wants to develop a project that's going to be upside down from the beginning. That doesn't make any sense. It has to be profitable. So even without subsidies, there's plenty of subsidies available, but even with subsidies, sometimes these things don't work. And often you'll find that out as a developer after the fact. So you put in 6 to 12 months or even up to 24 months sometimes, could be longer in Greece from what I hear, right? And in those cases, you end up abandoning about 85% of all opportunities as a developer and putting in maybe about 200,000 to 250,000. So it's expensive for developers, and it would be much better to have full visibility of all the data for the site so that investors can come in earlier. This kind of software, then what it does is it brings structure to the market, it raises the bar and says, Greece is an organized country. We know what we're doing with our energy space. We know where their opportunities are. We know where it's profitable to build. And investors come, right? Bring the money. That's what you want. Next slide, please. We're almost done. Yeah, so our key IP, we have patents and trademarks to be for that dynamic hosting capacity computation. We're applying for those right now. Some of them applying for them. The AI engine for geospatial computation of the best site selection. And then the last is the unique ROI or IRR, internal rate of return calculation, and a risk assessment for each site. So what our GIS, which is geospatial mapping software, like Google Earth, if you think about Google Earth, right? It's a beautiful map. You can look at the whole country, or you can zoom in down all the way down to look at the site details. And then you can lay out the site, you can connect in a marketplace then with the whole energy industry and get best pricing. There's all kinds of opportunities for synergies between participants in the energy industry. Next slide, please. So we just wrap up with our vision, which is we wanted to bring a whole country model and to pilot that program in Greece because of the opportunities, and because also in my 32 times that I visited Greece, I have been astounded by the level of talent amongst the people there and in the research area and the innovation. And there is a new zest, I believe, even with all the horrible things happening with the pandemic right now. There's a lot of people with the will and the drive to see something like this happen. And I also think that there's a just transition is what they call it, from the fossil fuel side, right? So there's a lot of people that were employed by the lignite plant, right? And in that whole process, all of that employment and those jobs, there has to be a retraining of the workforce towards the new renewable infrastructure, the grid, all of it that's required. And on top of that, there has to be something in it for the oil and gas and fossil fuels industry participants who have put a lot of investment already into energy in the country, right? And so when you're shifting from that into something new, there has to be something in it for them as they move forward, right? The whole industry has to shift, and there has to be something in it for everybody, basically. So that's where I'll end it. That's what we're doing with EarthFund.
Thank you, Alysia. And actually, what you said, some of the biggest oil and gas companies, they're shifting their focus and becoming power companies, and they do go into renewables, they do go into hydrogen, the subject we're going to discuss next with Konstantine. And it's also important what you said, abandoning 85% of the opportunities. And there is too much money being bet on Greece, by different people right now. So the idea is to put the units where they make money, and they actually, give the right incentives, but at the other time, produce electricity that's affordable for the people of the country. Our next guest, and thank you for being with us, Konstantinos, is Constantinos Papalucas. He's an energy policy expert and an East Med specialist. Since October 2019, he's advising the Greek Minister of Environment and Energy on energy policy and infrastructure affairs and energy investments. While in December 2020, he was appointed as the coordinator of the National Hydrogen Committee, whose mandate is to prepare the hydrogen strategy of the Hellenic Republic. In the past, he served as an associate at Harvard University's Belfer Center for Science and International Affairs, and in the US House Energy and Commerce Committees. Upon his return from the US, he founded East Med Energy Hub, consulting energy company that consults with corporations that seek to invest in the Eastern Mediterranean and governments on natural resources management, advocating for a regional energy hub in the Eastern Mediterranean. Konstantinos teaches energy and strategy management and negotiation and conflict management in the Department of Business and Public Administration of the University of Cyprus. He is also a member of the United Nations Group of Gas Experts and also member of Group of Experts on CMM and the Task Force of Hydrogen. He has written several policy papers and has been a member of the authoring team of the Greek National Energy and Climate Plan, ESEC as is known in Greek. His work has been hosted in mainstream journals and magazines such as the Washington Times, Times of Israel, Egypt Oil and Gas, Hippo Reds, and others. Konstantinos holds a Master of Public Administration from Harvard Kennedy School of Government. Thank you, Konstantinos, for being with us. And we're going to talk about hydrogen. This is a much talked about entity nowadays, And actually, the first hydrogen vehicle was made in 1994 in the US, in Berkeley, actually, in California. And since then, hydrogen has been in the news on and off, and lately it's actually on the news all the time. Everything, there's conferences after conferences. Where does Greece fit into this hydrogen picture?
I bet. Thank you, Konstantinos. Good evening, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank you for the invite. It's a great honor to be with you today. Before I provide any inputs on hydrogen, energy security, gas imports, hydrocarbons, smart grids, etc., I think that the previous presenters covered most of these topics. I think I will try to focus on the bigger picture. So let me start with raising the basic question here that we will probably hit the core of our energy independence discussion. Since the very early years of the modern Greek state, did we ever have a Greek grand strategy? So what's a grand strategy? In a nutshell, a grand strategy refers to the collection of plans and policies that comprise the state's deliberate effort to harness political, military, diplomatic, and economic tools together to advance the national interest. So did the Greek state and its policymakers ever crafted its grand strategy to reconcile its ends and means? Unfortunately, if we need to be strict, the answer seems to be a flat no. So the question now is, did we Greeks ever have a grand strategy? Edward Luttwak, who wrote a well-regarded history of the grand strategy of ancient Rome, may answer this question with a flat yes. In one of his latest books, he shows how the rulers of the eastern half of the Roman Empire were the true masters of the craft. So although it was today called Byzantium, occupied a more vulnerable geographic position than its Western counterpart, it lasted almost 1,000 years longer. So Luttwak argues that the Byzantines survived by relying less on brute military power and more on allies, diplomacy, and the containment of their enemies. They were able, he claims, to generate disproportionate power from whatever military strength could be mustered by combining it with the art of persuasion and guided by superior information. So again, grand strategy is the art of reconciling ends and means. It involves purposive action, what leaders think and want. Such action is constrained by factors leaders explicitly recognize, such as budget constraints, the limitations inherent in the tools of statecraft, and to make it more specific, like decoding new threats and opportunities, like major shifts in the global energy policy to tackle climate change and emissions, the deployment of new technologies, and so on. So did we ever have that? And isn't it the time to draw a baseline? Thank you for bearing with me, but this was necessary to lay down the grounds for our topic. I also wanted to clarify that I am participating to this panel as an energy expert. Therefore, the opinions that I will share with you are solely my own, and therefore do not reflect the views or opinions of any of my roles or capacity within the ministry. So going back to our topic, the Paris Agreement, the European Green Deal, and the goals set in our National Energy and Climate Plan, ESEC, as you said, Konstantine, have clearly paved the way for transition for all Greek energy corporations, public power corporation included. The main reason behind this is that despite lignite being the only Greek national fuel for the time being, it has been deemed financially unsustainable for electricity generation, primarily due to the CO2 taxation and the relatively low thermal efficiency of the aged PPC coal-fired power stations. Both the EU and US policymakers seem to have chosen a greener shift, adopting environmentally friendly technologies in their policy mix. However, such shift is still interpreted differently at the two sides of the Atlantic, according to different priorities and different strategic interests of the transatlantic partners that aim to serve. More specifically, at the moment, the EU and Germany in particular is taking a stride forward to a zero emissions economy by 2050 and promoting the massive development and use of green hydrogen. The United States, on the other hand, seem to have CCUS technology as their flagship in order to safeguard their hydrocarbons and the coal sectors. So this presents a tremendous opportunity for Greece and to seek how to balance between the two trends, to promote its interest while simultaneously support its own energy-intensive exporting industrial groups. The unification of the two energy clusters that are currently under developing in northern Greece into one that will be extending its territory from Western Macedonia all the way to Thrace, can act as a platform for attracting large-scale energy investments from within the EU, the US, and elsewhere. This could provide a certain degree of liberty in the Greek energy policy and also improve the country's positioning in the energy value chain of the region. So beside the horizontal connection, the linear connection of the two areas provided by TAP pipeline, Northern Greece has already attracted major energy investments such as the FSRU Alexandroupolis, the IGB, witnessing a strong interest from the US and the EU for the energy security of the Southeastern Europe. To conclude, we can go back and blame each other. Why didn't we act early on to develop our oil and gas reserves? Why this and why that? We can do the same in foreign policy, in our defense programs, and so on. So is that the approach that our generation deserves? I don't think so. And since I'm involved and kind of answering your question, Konstantine, in the works of the National Hydrogen Committee, I will use one of my favorite examples, Portugal. Portugal is a country with the same population with Greece. It was a part of the troubled countries known as PIGS that received the main heat of the financial crisis in Europe. That being said, since 2013, a new group of leaders took office and they popped up in all energy forums in Europe, asking a bunch of questions and actually raised eyebrows. I do remember myself in Boston in 2014 when MIT was flooded with posters advertising how Portugal was the first country that ran its entire energy needs for an entire day strictly on renewables. Since then, Portugal became a leader in renewables, a pioneer in batteries, in electric vehicles, and now they are harvesting their hard work in developing green hydrogen and green ammonia, signing the first commercial agreement within Europe with Netherlands as their off-taker. So why not us? What does it stop us to turn Greece into a leader in any sector? Taking hydrogen, which is a valuable energy vector that will help the world tackle various energy challenges and effectively combat climate change. Building up a hydrogen economy in Europe and in Greece, it needs a full value chain approach that will entail the parallel development of supply and demand, like with that of the upstream, the midstream, and the downstream infrastructure, so that we can escape the chicken and egg problem. So developing a hydrogen economy could be a very good reason for the repatriation of high caliber scientists to work in new industrial sectors that will be developed for the first time in Greece, a phenomenon also known as brain gain, reversing that of the brain drain of the last decade. So what should be a role for Greece here? This is what we are doing in the Hydrogen Committee. Draw a baseline that fits the aims and capabilities of our country and that serves our national interest so that we can build on that. Thank you, and I look forward to participating in the discussion.
Thank you, Konstantinos. And from what I understand, the Greece's position, or call it the project of common interest, should be out soon, describing Greece's position on hydrogen, and you were one of the authors. So it'd be very interesting to see the European Union's stance on this. And going back to something that Yiannis said, and I do understand, I'm sure that Lou will understand this very well. It is not the architect who will build the building. So now we have plans, but we also need to bring the builders, the investors, create the incentives to bring the investments, and also be real with the barriers, wherever they are in each case. And going back to a little bit on the lignite, and you mentioned CCUS and the cost of, I think, from what I read so far, the cost of CO2 will go up to 80 euros by 2030. And this will affect gas power generation for sure. It will affect all industry, not just cement, anything that has to do with steel, aluminum, nickel, and all of these are major ingredients of every renewable project. to build them, that is. So on barriers and incentives, where are we now? What do you think is the role of Greece as a state that can play? And I want to, starting with Manoli, you've been around for many years, Mr. Panagiotakis, and you've actually gave us a great presentation on the status. What are, why should anybody now come and what are the incentives that we should be given out for people to actually, because there's investment needed to be done. You cannot just keep running as is. You're muted. There you
are. I have studied the plan for the transition to a post-lignite era. It contains interesting plans and projects in which we can attract investments from Greece or from abroad. But I think that all these will start after some years. Until then, I'm afraid that the youth of this area will emigrate, will go out of the area. It will be it will be a catastrophe, a social catastrophe. In my opinion, if we don't go to the abrupt delignitization, we will have the time to go, as I said in my presentation, to go smoothly to the post-lignite era. I remind that by 2030, more than 160 million euros will go in the area due to the lignite production. I don't know if any other project can have such a contribution to the area. As far as the hydrogen production is concerned, I think that we can exploit. I agree that we can exploit the tension, the experience, the developments, and to try to produce in Greece and specifically in Western Macedonia hydrogen. But this is one of the projects from which we expect to deliver after many years. Bear in mind that in the national plan, the ESEC, as you said, it is forecasted that by 2030 only 50 megawatts of hydrogen storage will have in Greece. I think that we PPC, which is a public company, which is the most organized entity in Western Macedonia, must play a central, a decisive role, taking initiatives in business initiatives in many fields, even changing its its core business, not only producing electricity, but participating in agriculture and in other business activities. But I'm afraid that the strategy now is quite different. They have adopted the easy solution to create huge photovoltaics, 2,000.5 gigawatts photovoltaics in the fields, lignite fields, which will reduce the earth for agriculture and which will not restore the environment issues in this area. Thank you.
Thank you. Yiannis, since you spend so much time with gas and have this conversation about EastMed, more and more people wonder if EastMed will be ever built in the next year. And actually, we have many recent developments, with the US strongly disagreeing with Germany about Nord Stream. What do you think?
Well, I said that since long time. Can you hear me? You can hear me? Yeah. I said that since long time that the problem with EastMed was not political, not technical. We can take good decisions between countries. Technically, it can be done easily. There is a cost, and this cost will be covered by the market. It will never be covered by the European Union, maybe part of that. And in order to be able to feed this pipe so that there is no times of delay or times where it is empty, we need in the Eastern Mediterranean to make more discoveries. Unfortunately, it was the time of the pandemic and everything stopped. And if we multiply by 2 the today's reserves, it can be done. Now the problem is that some other alternatives appear, and it seems that Egypt is the master, probably together with Israel, and maybe we will have a change in directions, and probably EastMed will be only for electricity. This is not a possibility. You never know. It may happen like that. I don't know, but nobody knows today. Not yet. Not yet.
Thank you, Yiannis. Definitely a shifting environment with many things are happening every day, both physical and political phenomena. And going back to what Alysia and Vasilis and Konstantinos said, Greece becoming a technological hub, one that actually creates some of the technologies we talk about green hydrogen. Because right now, blue hydrogen is definitely what has been used mostly because it's economic. But green hydrogen, like any other technology, is coming into maturity. But can Greece be the hub? Or if not, because it's not just because we have the sun. That's a good, that's a good plus on our side. But we also need the people and, of course, the investment. And I haven't met anybody who does not want to come to Greece and live here. But we also need the investment and the political initiative. And that's something we can talk about. And since Alysia has been here and seen things on the ground, and Vasilis has actually started, Parity Platform is one of the companies, pioneer in fundraising for renewable energy projects. I would like to get your opinion, because this is actually the future, being a technology hub and an energy hub.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's probably not going to be the energy hub and technology hub of the world. I mean, but it will be a significant one. I think it has the potential to do that. I mean, we're seeing that. And we're seeing a lot of inflow of EU funds into Greece, which will hopefully help the technology development. Konstantinos, you're probably seeing that, right, as well on the hydrogen side, or maybe you're not, but I know there is some opportunity for that. I think they're looking, we're navigating that whole grant space right now, especially with our affiliation with the Athena Center. There are a lot of opportunities for grants that we've applied for recently. So hopefully we'll be announcing some of those next time we talk. Vassilis, what's your thought on that?
A couple of things, because you, Konstantin, raised a lot of issues there. The first one is, yeah, we'll probably not be like the locus of the energy initiative globally. I don't think we have the resources, I don't have the infrastructure, and I don't think we aspire to be at the end of the day. However, having said that, I do believe that we have a lot of talented people around here. Some of them have left. Some of them want to come back. Some of them with the new law about digital and nomads that want to be part of, just staying around here, and the non-DOMs will be able to come around. I have to tell you that working the last couple of years with Parity, and we are a technology company. We're not just focusing on financing renewables on an individual, i.e. crowdfunding level. We also have a new product about charging electrical vehicles. And we've done that on our own. And I do believe it's one of the best that's around. Okay, I mean, the team that we have, it's 4 people, and one of them used to work in Amazon Robotics, and he came back to Greece. So, that's one thing that we were looking at. And I do believe that there's a lot of talent flowing around here. To be fair, we're cheap. Okay, we're not that expensive. I mean, I had the opportunity and let's say the joy of looking through Alysia's, some of how things are done at Silicon Valley. And I'm pretty sure they're quite amazing, but at the end of the day, they are really, really expensive. And I am certain, having looked at it, that we can do the same, if not better, quality of work here in Athens, in Greece, let's say at large, not just in Athens, with, I think with a flair and an innovation that's not available anywhere else. So I'm quite confident that if we put up the right conditions or even preconditions for people to come around, we have a tremendous capability of manpower that we haven't been able to utilize. I mean, I'm just looking at it from wearing my both hats at Earth Index and at Parity. I feel that we don't have to go somewhere else. Okay, I mean, we probably need the input and the feedback from the US, because they are very good and ahead of our in various things. But at the implementation level and how things are done, I think that we are not. I think it's the level of competence that we have is global. It's really good. It's really fair, and I think that just to sum it up, we are in a position right now that we are there. We can do it, and I think we have to capitalize on this.
Thank you, Vassili. Konstantinos.
If I may add, I mean, there are several issues that I would like to touch. Start with the IPCI call, the important project of common European interest that you addressed before, Konstantin. The call is getting out, should be getting out this week. We are really optimistic because we see exactly that, I can witness the brain gain, since I see people that they came back after having worked in great companies like Shell, etc., and they're bringing back their knowledge, and I think that, you know, it doesn't take so much effort to put things in order in Greece. We have so many obvious strengths that remain underutilized. I think that our generation feels that we were, let's say, we have to leave behind most of the things that made us, you know, being divided, and look at the bright side. And so I would like also to touch, you know, that because I see, that's why I try to focus on the big picture in the beginning. We talked about EEST METE. So for years, we tried to compare EEST METE and talk numbers and compare it with brownfield pipelines like of Gazprom that, you know, they have no sunk cost to pay anymore. And obviously, we were trying to see what's the landing price of gas in Italy and so on. The same happens with hydrogen. I mean, most of the European countries right now, they deployed their natural gas infrastructure, and they're viewing it, you know, how to repurpose their existing infrastructure. And in Greece, we're trying to develop our gas infrastructure and see how we can use that infrastructure to transfer hydrogen. So it's always, you know, trying to catch up with the rest. I think, you know, it might make sense to stop, think a little bit, and make a stride forward instead of, you know, running after, you know, other countries and trying to imitate something. There is a great significance of our diaspora, that they act as a buffer, and especially in the United States, this potential remains, especially in the United States, it remains unharvested. So we need to find the ways and use all these. I mean, there are so many Greek Americans, and not only, that they can contribute with their experience in Silicon Valley, in New York, in you name it, in Texas. So we have to make the fine tuning. The challenges are ahead. Nobody could foresee, I mean, the change in the European Commission. I mean, Juncker's presidency was talking about natural gas as a transition fuel. Then the Greens came up, and now we are trying to protect the blue hydrogen, and not protect, but support the blue hydrogen. So I'm trying to say that we need to find our balanced way forward. And for that, everybody can contribute. The old generation can contribute with their experience. The new generation can contribute with their experiences abroad. So I think this is a time. I mean, 200 years of independence should be marked with a totally different approach, an inclusive approach.
Thank you, Konstantinos. And actually, I want to thank everybody in answering or contributing to what is the next energy model for Hellas. This is a unique opportunity for the country, because there will be a lot of funds coming in the next few years, and it's up to us to use the talent that we spoke before to create the plan and have the builders to build it, to create the model that works. And from what I understand, it can include lignite with some new technologies to make it cleaner and to comply with the EU green regulations. It will also contain natural gas. Renewables will have done in a systematic way that actually make money, like we explained before, will have a major role. And hydrogen is been developed, there's a lot of money and hype because it actually has, as Yiannis said before, the joules, the energy density of hydrogen, it's high up there, and it can contribute to the next phase. And Konstantinos mentioned Portugal as an example. And I'm sure if we put it all together, there is a lot of things that we can all do. I'd like to thank you very much, all of you. And back to you, Lou. And since you are you a builder or an architect? You got to tell us.
I'm a builder.
Oh, I knew that.
But I work with architects, and usually on the pre-construction side with architects, engineers, and all the rest of that. But at the end of the day, it's up to the builder to build the project and make it work. I have to congratulate all of you, by the way, for an excellent and enlightening and thought-provoking second forum. Just a couple of thoughts. We started the first Hellenic Energy Independence Forum on the basis of discussing energy independence, and the more I've been listening to it in the first forum and in the second forum, it seems that we're not heading towards energy independence, but we're heading more and more towards energy dependence. And a couple of things that came out today, and I think I totally agree with them. We talk about national strategies. Certainly, we can't compare ourselves to the Eastern Roman Empire because obviously Hellas is a much smaller entity than the Eastern Roman Empire. And when we talk about they use their brains versus military strengths, don't forget they had the money to hire mercenaries to fight their battles. And to a certain degree, that's how the Ottomans came into the whole area. Plus, they had the walls of Constantinople that we do not have. I will say in my opinion that the stop and think aspect of what was discussed today is extremely important. Many times, as we discussed in the 200th anniversary, we're saying, well, did we have national strategies? No, but other people had national strategies for themselves. In other words, in my opinion, Hellas has been used for 200 years, quite frankly, by other nations. And it's time, as was discussed today, that we step back, start thinking about these various strategies, and make sure that whatever is done is in a national interest of the Hellenic Republic and also obviously of Cyprus that we're talking about. We talk about, how other people do things, but don't forget, a lot of these renewable aspects only work because of subsidies. Take out the subsidies and the cost and benefits collapse completely. What we don't want to see, and we'll have other discussions obviously on Hellenic independence, what we don't want to see is Hellas again being used by carpetbaggers from other nations coming in and taking advantages, quite frankly, of the people there. The word that came out in my mind, which I heard, was mania, and obviously energy poverty. We do not want the Hellenic people to be in poverty because of people coming in and creating energy sources that they cannot afford. We know the story of what happened in Germany, how they took out, for example, their nuclear plants, and how they did all these other things and raised and increased, let's say, the poverty of the German people. We as Hellenes have to think for ourselves. We have the brains. We have the brains. And what was indicated before in the discussion is there is a strong diaspora. We do have people in all these industries that we're talking about. We do have the technological experience around the world to do these things. We have to come together. We have to avoid being separated. And obviously the politicians play a major role because they are part of the problem of what's been taking place in Hellas for 200 years. Anyway, that was my soapbox for the second. To our audience, join us for EMBCA's the effects of the Hellenic Revolution on medicine, health, and wellness in Greece, America, and Europe, panel discussion on Sunday, April the 11th. The distinguished panel will include Sotiris Sotiropoulos, President and CEO of A2A Pharmaceuticals, author, engineer, and president of the Pamachon Cultural Union, Kostas Dervenis, orthopedic surgeon, Hellenic Army Major Evangelos Tsaloyannis, Jennifer Arnott, the research librarian of the Perkins School for the Blind, and Lisa Norberg, the library director of the Cooper Union for the Advancement of Science and Art, where I myself have taught at Cooper Union for many years. The panel discussion will discuss, obviously, medicine, health, and wellness, and how they affected Western societies, emphasizing the contributions of John Zachos, Samuel Gridley Howe, and Michael Anagnos, Panagiotis Sustos, Evangelos Zapis, among many others. For more information, log into emca.com and also subscribe to our EMCA YouTube channel for our programs past, present, and future. Thank you, and good afternoon to those in the States, and good evening to those in Europe and the Eastern Mediterranean. Zito Elas, we can do it, and we should think about energy independence, not dependence from Xeni and others who are trying to take away our natural resources. Thank you, and take care.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you.
Good night. Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, all of you. Have a good night.